Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be quickly going through every book that I've read in the second quarter of 2021. So I did a similar video for the first quarter where I talked through every book that I read in January, February, March, just listing the books and giving the star rating, and then I talk about 3 of my favourite books that I've read over this last quarter. Running through, starting very quickly with what I read in April. So in the month of April, I read Le Petit Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and this I gave a 4-star rating. I then read Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which I gave 4 stars as well. I read A Time of Courage by John Gwynne, which I gave 5 stars. I read Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo, which I gave 3 stars. It might be more of like a 2.5 stars. I read Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark, which I gave 3 stars. I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, which I gave 5 stars. Wildwood Dancing by Juliette Marillier, which I gave 4 stars. Air Awakens and Fire Falling by Elise Kova. Air Awakens I gave 4 stars and Fire Falling 3.5 stars. And finishing the month of April with The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I gave 3 stars, probably more, 2.5 stars. Moving into the month of May, I read The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, which I gave 4 stars. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, which I gave 4.5 stars. I reread The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, which I gave 5 stars. The Oracle Year by Charles Soule, which I gave 3.5 stars. Stormglass by Maria V. Schneider, which I gave 3.5 stars. And Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, which I gave 4.5 stars. Then moving into the month of June, I read Graceling by Kristen Cashel, which I gave 4 stars. I read The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson, which I gave 3 stars. I read You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hoggle, which I also gave 3 stars. And then I read The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson, which I gave 4.5 stars. As well, Snapshot by Brandon Sanderson, which I gave 4 stars. I then read The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, another reread, which I gave 5 stars yet again. I read The Hod King by Josiah Bancroft, which I gave, I think, like a 3.75 stars. I read The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller, which I gave 3 stars. Sea Glass by Maria V. Snyder, which I gave 3 stars as well. I read This Is How You Lose the Time Warp by Amal Al-Mutar and Max Gladstone, which I gave 3 stars as well. And I read Earth's End by Elise Kova, the 3rd book in the Air Awakens series, which I gave 3 stars as well, lots of 3 stars. And I read The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty, another reread, which I gave 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in the months of April, May and June, just quickly running through them. As for my top books that I read, without counting the rereads of the David Bad trilogy, which are the 5-star books, like absolute favourites of all time, love them to pieces, like love these books, but it feels like weird to count them because they are rereads, but they are a favourite. So if you're counting rereads, my reread of the David Bad trilogy is a favourite. As for the new books that I read and the new favourites, I didn't have so many 5 stars in these past 3 months. Like, I read a lot of average books. There's a lot of average, but hopefully I'll be on the up for the second half of the year. So one of my favourite books that I read in the past 3 months was A Time of Courage by John Gwynne, the 3rd book in the Of Blood and Bone series. I mean, I love everything John Gwynne. I feel like this beats out The Shadow of the Gods, which is his new release. This being I think it's just, as a whole, in my preferences, I think John Gwynne is very good at continuations and finales. I think his finales are epic. Like, once he has done the world building, which he's good at, he's very good at, I think that he really excels at the denouement, he really excels at the finales. I just think he's very good at bringing things together and giving us a very satisfying conclusion to series. So this is why this beats that one out. And I loved it. I was an emotional wreck when I finished this. It's one of those books where I had to hug it and be like, oh my god, what happened? Like, how could you do this to me? But like, I love this world. I love the Banished Lands. I think The Faithful and the Fallen is my favourite by him, but it was such an epic conclusion to the Of Blood and Bone trilogy. I loved these characters. I love the world. I love the writing. I just read John Gwynne. Another favourite book, and a bit surprisingly for me as a fantasy reader, is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I loved this book. I read it for my 24-hour reading vlog and I loved it. It was just so fun. It was so fun. Like, I've just felt compelled to read it. I just was immersed in the characters and their lives. It just made me happy. Like, if you want a book that's going to make you happy, then I'd recommend reading it. I will say that it does play with timelines, that you do jump back and forth through the timelines. So if you don't like that, then you might not enjoy the narrative structure of it. But I thoroughly enjoyed People We Meet on Vacation. It was just so fun. It was so fun. And you know, sometimes that is what you need. Sometimes you really just need an absolutely fun book, contemporary romance, and that one really worked for me in these past 3 months. And then the final book that I want to touch on a bit more is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and this made me want to read all of Octavia E. Butler's books. And this I picked up. I've heard people talk about it. I've heard people say that they enjoyed this, but I picked it up pretty much on a whim when I was out book shopping in Oxford, and I really enjoyed it. You're following a main character, Dana, who goes back 200 or so years into the past. She's from the 1970s in America, which is when this was written, and she goes back into the 1800s, where she saves this young boy only to find out that he is one of her relatives, and that she as a black woman is suddenly in the 1800s in America and is sucked into slavery, and how she is able to survive and cope with that. And I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I mean, it's a short book, but a very impactful book. As I explained in my wrap up, I believe that it really packs a punch and really gets you thinking. Like, you're compelled to read it and you're compelled to keep reading because you're concerned for these characters and what's going to happen to them. But it's also not the fastest of reads because of how dark it is, and how real and how horrific, just how horrific it is, and horrific knowing that this isn't a fantasy. This is a real, well, I mean, it is a fantasy in that it's fiction, but that this is based on real historical events. And it just makes you think, like, how did humanity do this? I mean, I get it. Humanity we're not good people. So many of us aren't good people. Like, we aren't, but it really does pack a punch, and I would really recommend it. I think that many of us could get something out of this story. And it's still sticking with me. Like, I think I gave this 4 stars, but it's probably close to a 5 now, because upon reflection, it's been a couple of months now since I read this. It really has stuck with me, and I think about it and think about how it could relate to my life, and like what I feel like I've got a lot out of the story, and the memorability of it, and like what it means. So very solid book. So those are all of the books that I've read over the past 3 months, plus 3 of my favourites. Let me know what you've been reading over the past few months and what your favourite book of the quarter is. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!